Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this video, we will be looking at another classic constructed deck, this time for Arakni Huntsman. Arakni is a hero that I really wanted to be good, and I got everything I needed to play them pretty much on day one, and I haven't played it since, because Arakni just really isn't that good. Some of the new cards they got from Outsiders do make them a lot better, but even with that, Arakni still doesn't really make the cut when compared to their assassin counterpart Azuri. But that still doesn't mean that we can't take a look at this Arakni deck list that I think works pretty well if you did want to play Arakni in any classic constructed events. First, let's take a look at the hero card. Arakni Huntsman is a assassin hero with 4 intellect and 40 life. They have an ability that says whenever you play a card with contract, you may look at the top card of your opponent's deck. You may put that card on the bottom. This effect, sadly, really never comes up too much because it's almost always better to just keep the card on top and let it get banished with Arakni's ability. Mainly because you want to make your opponent think that the card on top's really good, I want to block, and then they look and see, oh, this card's terrible. It really doesn't matter what you get rid of. I guess if you really need the silver for something like a payday, you really need to complete your contract, putting a card on the bottom to get a color card on top or a type of card on top that you need to hit for your contract is pretty good. And I like that idea that they were going for with Arakni, but sadly this just ends up being a almost useless hero ability that only gives you a slight amount of utility, because looking at the top card of your opponent's deck doesn't really do much when they draw at the end of the turn and not at the start of their turn. Now, looking at our equipment, the Mask of Perdition is Arakni's premier headpiece. Mask of Perdition has the effect that says when it's in your graveyard, at the start of your turn, you may destroy 2 silver you control to equip it. Some of the other assassin pieces have this same effect, and it was the control equipment recursion idea that Arakni had. Arakni wants to generate a bunch of silver with contract cards and then get extra HP and utility by re-equipping these equipment from their discard pile. However, since silver is directly made off of banishing the correct card, it does sometimes get a little hard to do so, although this is still a very good headpiece. It also has Battle Worn with 1 block, so it can stick around, and the main way you're going to be putting it into your discard pile is with its attack reaction effect. It says, attack reaction, destroy Mask of Perdition, target assassin attack card gains when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. A pretty good effect, especially with the way that contract works. That banish will check for all of your contracts currently on the combat chain, making this an extra way to maybe get another silver. If you didn't want to play the Mask of Perdition, because it's definitely the weakest of the spend silver to re-equip equipment, you could easily play any other generic headpiece, mainly the 2 premier legendary ones, the Arakni Skullcap and the Crown of Providence. Next, let's look at the chess piece Redback Shroud. This was a new addition in Outsiders, and it has the similar effects to the headpiece of you can re-equip it for 2 silver, and it has Battle Worn with 1 block. The effect that Redback Shroud gives you is also an attack reaction, to where you can destroy it, and make the next attack reaction card you play this turn cost 1 less. This is an equipment that not a lot of assassins are running. Some of the slower decks end up playing a tunic instead of this, but this card does have some pretty nice synergy in our deck. It can make our Razor Reflex free. It can make our Pummel cost only 1, which means it's playable with 1 blue and any of our 2-cost cards. And it also makes our Spreading Plague free, a card that I will be talking about when we talk about the rest of the deck list. Personally, I really like the Redback Shroud. I think it's a very good equipment to re-equip, since when you're breaking it, you're generally getting it for free value. You can easily get 2 to 3 extra resources throughout a game, and I think this is definitely a very strong chess piece for Arakni. Moving on, Flick Knives is going to be our main arms of choice. This is also a new Outsiders edition. It has Blade Break with 1 block and says, once per turn, attack reaction. Target dagger you control that isn't the active chain link deals 1 damage to target hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit and you destroy the dagger. All of the assassin daggers have really strong hit effects. We'll talk about them more when I talk about the daggers. And they can also be re-equipped with the concealed blades, allowing you to get a lot of value out of the Flick Knives, which makes this one of the stronger assassin cards gotten inside of Outsiders, as well as assassins really didn't have gloves before. Before, a lot of them were playing the Goliath gauntlets to make their 2-cost attacks stronger. However, with the addition of Flick Knives, I do really like the utility and poke damage that they bring, so Flick Knives is the choice that I made for this deck list, although you could play those other options. Unlike any of the other equipment, Black Tech Whispers is the only legendary that I would say you definitely need for this deck. Black Tech Whispers is the same as the Mask and the Redback Shroud, with the re-equipped ability and the Battle Worn with 1 block. Similarly, it has an attack reaction that has you destroy it, but it definitely has the best effect out there. This effect gives target assassin attack action. When this hits a hero, it gains Go Again. This is perfect for what Arakni wants to be doing. It allows you to pump up an attack so that it hits and then gain the ability to play another attack. This doubles your damage output, since pretty much none of the assassin attacks have Go Again, and it's a super strong addition to really any assassin deck. Even Azuri plays this because of how strong Black Tech Whisperers are. Something that we did not take a look at yet, that I normally look at before the equipment, is the weapons. This is because assassins have a lot of weapons to talk about. All of the assassin daggers are one-handed. Spider's Bite, Nerve Scalpel, and Scale Peeler, and Orbitoclast. So you can pick whatever 2 you want. The main reason why they're all here is because of Flick Knives. Being able to throw these daggers gives you their strong hit effects, but before we look at their hit effects, what else do these knives do? Spider's Bite and all of the other knives are assassin weapon daggers that are one-handed, and they all have 1 power. They all have a once per turn action to pay 2 resources and attack with Go Again. They have Piercing 1, which means if they're defended by an equipment, the weapon gets +1 power. And when they hit a hero, the next time that hero defends with whatever the specific card the dagger mentions, all of those cards have -1 block while defending for that one instance of defending. So as an example, Spider's Bite is attack actions. If they block with 2 attack actions, both of them have -1 defense. Nerve Scalpel checks opponents' reactions. The two that you normally start the game with in most matchups will be one Nerve Scalpel and one Spider's Bite. However, depending on the matchup, you'll bring in some of the other ones. Looking at our sideboard real quick, we do play the other two daggers. Orbitoclast checks non-attack actions, and Scale Peeler will check equipment. Depending on some matchups, you'll bring these in. Orbitoclast is more for non-attack action-based decks, think Wizard. Scale Peeler is more for equipment blocking-based decks, think Guardian. Although the other two, such as the reaction and the attack reaction or attack action, are very good into Guardian still. We also play a second Spider's Bite because, I mean, why not? There are a lot more decks that play all attacks than decks that play no attacks. So you might as well play the second Spider's Bite as a second dagger, just in case you need to re-equip with your Concealed Blades. And it's probably right to have 3 daggers in your sideboard if you have 3 Concealed Blade in your deck, which we do. I would play one of each dagger normally with the Flick Knives anyway, so we might as well play all of them. Taking a look at some of our sideboarded equipment, other than the 3 daggers we're going to be playing, we just have 3 pieces of Arcane Barrier: Arcane Lantern, Northern Gloves, and Northern Hood. Lantern's here since we're on a bunch of one-handed weapons. It definitely makes sense to be playing a one-handed Arcane Barrier, since it doesn't take any of our other equipment. Looking at the other 2 Northern slots, we're playing Gloves and Hood because those are the 2 weakest slots when we need to be bringing in Arcane Barrier. Arcane Lantern should generally always be the first. If we need a second, we'll be bringing in the Northern Hood, and if we need a third, we'll be bringing in the Gloves. If you wanted, you could do the Gloves second. It's more matchup dependent. Against something like a Runeblade, if you think you needed a second, I would go for the Gloves instead of the Hood, since the extra repeatable block on the mask is pretty nice. But if you were only going to bring in 2 against something like a Wizard, it'll be better to bring in the Northern Hood, since you don't need the block on the helmet, as well as sometimes flicking the knife at your opponent is a pretty nice way to get in some free damage, especially since they already have a lower starting HP pool, although against Wizard you're probably going to end up bringing in all 3 of these anyway. If you wanted to, you could play Arakni Skullcap instead of Northern Hood, but I don't own it, and when you look at the deck list, you'll see a card that I definitely said in other videos I don't own, and I probably will say in this one, but if you have it, you might as well. Sometimes Northern Hood's better. I personally prefer the Northern Hood, but if you wanted to play the Arakni, and if you are playing the Arakni instead of the Mask of Perdition anyway, you might want to consider maybe another Down and Dirty, or maybe another Spreading Plague in your sideboard, just in case you need the extra copy, because you probably won't need to bring in the 3rd Arcane Barrier if you have the Arakni Skullcap. Now that we've looked at this deck's equipment, let's take a look at this deck's main board. 3 red Annihilate the Armed with 1 blue, 3 Command and Conquer, 3 red and 3 blue Cut to the Chase, 3 Enlightened Strike, 3 red Fate Foreseen, 3 Leave No Witness, 3 red Razor Reflex, 3 red Sack the Shifty, 3 red Sink Below, 3 Codex of Frailty, 3 Eradicate, 3 yellow Shred, 2 Spreading Plague, 3 Concealed Blade, 2 Payday, 3 blue Plunder the Poor, 1 blue Pummel, 3 blue Rob the Rich, 3 blue Slay the Scholars, and 3 Surgical Extraction. To get some quick explanations out of the way, all of the common, rare, contract cards, you can play whichever versions you want. Just try to have about 10 of the blue and 6 of the red. That's the numbers I went for here. I still wanted some of them as playable attacks. I went with the Annihilate the Armed and the Sack the Shifty, because I think they're a bit more of the useful ones. And then for the blues, I went with some other tech ones, the Slay the Scholars, the Rob the Rich, the Plunder the Poor, another Annihilate the Armed, because that card, in my opinion, is the best of the common rare contract cards. But you can play whichever ones you want. If you like Nyx the Nimble, you can play that. If you like Blue Sack the Shifty, Red Slay the Scholar, that's fine. Just play some variety of them. They're the most easily changeable cards in this deck list. Jumping over to our reactions, starting with our defense reactions, we play Fate Foreseen and Sink Below just for some of the extra health. This deck does play a few 2-blocks, since we have 3 Razor Reflex and 1 Pummel, and our 3 Codex of Frailty, so we are a bit squishy on that front, so the extra D-reacts are pretty nice, as well as putting in your arsenal isn't too bad, since we generally want to be arsenaling reactions, either it be attack or defense, so extra cards to be able to put in your arsenal is very nice. Looking at our attack reactions, Razor Reflex is very nice here, since most of our attacks cost 1 or less. Pummel is here since our Surgical Extraction and our Command and Conquer have brutal hit effects that sometimes we will want to pump over, but we also have some other assassin ones. Yellow Shred's very nice. Generally, cards will block for 3, so this pretty much gets rid of a blocking card. And both Cuts of the Chases are an extra peek if you really needed it, as well as an extra pump to any of our assassin attacks with Contract. And we're on the reds because they're +3 and free, and we're on the blues because they pitch well and block well as they are pretty playable. The last attack reactions in our deck, we have a lot of attack reactions, are the Spreading Plagues and the Concealed Blades. Starting with the Concealed Blades, since we're on a Flick Knives deck, it makes sense to be playing these. They're +1 to any assassin or ninja attack, and then if that attack hits, we re-equip a dagger. Super important with Flick Knives. I wouldn't play Flick Knives without these. And then the Spreading Plague is here to sort of end out a game. This is one of our more second cycle cards. What Spreading Plague does is we create X Bloodrot Pox tokens under our opponent's control, where X is the number of defending cards on this chain link. So if we play something big, we make our opponent block a big Enlightened Strike for lethal. We can play the Spreading Plague, and then they'll take a bunch of damage at the end of their turn, which they won't have any cards to prevent. Super important for a late game situation. Spreading Plague is a very nice card that I really do like. And we only need 2 because we don't need it super early. It's more for our late game situations. Looking at some of the non-attack actions, we're only playing 5 in our deck. 3 Codex of Frailty and 2 Payday. Starting with the Payday, since that's a little bit more niche of a card. Payday gives us 4 silver if we've completed a contract this turn. Usually only playable with the help of our Black Tech Whisperers, but still really good. It lets us buy the Whisperers back and another equipment. And we'll have another 1 silver as well, since we completed at least 1 contract if we're playing it. So a very nice card to just generate some extra silver. And then Codex of Frailty, as you should all know, is an absolutely crazy card. Each player puts an attack action from their graveyard into their arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card. You get a Ponder token, your opponent gets a Frailty token. Go again. This lets you get back so many strong attacks. You can pick up a CNC or a Leave No Witness to threaten that card they put in their arsenal. You can pick up an Eradicate or a Surgical Extraction to get a super strong hit effect. Or you could even pick up something like an Enlightened Strike just for a super big attack to try to end out a game. Codex of Frailty, one of the strongest cards, if not the strongest card in Outsiders. Finally, let's take a look at some of our attack actions that I didn't quite mention too much yet. Command and Conquer is the card I don't have. I've said it in a bunch of other videos. If you don't have it, you can play something else instead. I probably wouldn't play it main board if you don't have the CNCs, but if you had them, this card super, super strong, as many know. Enlightened Strike is here because it's a 0 for 5 that has go again, or it's a 0 for 7, and sometimes it draws you a card. So, Enlightened Strike, super good, blocks 3. Really good with Razor Reflex as well. Pretty strong off a Codex of Frailty at the end of a game if we want to try to finish it. I really like the Enlightened Strike. Leave No Witness, Eradicate, and Surgical Extraction are the colored assassin contract cards, all of which check whatever color they are, and they're all super strong. Leave No Witness isn't like an extra Command and Conquer. Eradicate hits for a lot of banishment, and Surgical Extraction lets us take a peek at our opponent's hand. In all, we have some really strong attacks with all of the majestic contracts as well as the E-Strikes, the Command and Conquers, and our red, common, rare contracts, as well as a lot of nice pumps with a lot of our attack reactions, and a lot of pitch value with a lot of the blues that we're playing being some pretty strong cards in their own right. Finally, taking a look at our sideboard, we already talked about the equipment, so let's talk about the extra cards that we're going to be playing. Down and Dirty is here for when our opponents are playing Codex of Frailty decks, things like Azuri, things like Azalea, sometimes even Lexi will be playing Codex of Frailty. So Down and Dirty is really nice there to get some defense back from your discard pile. Imperial Warhorn is here to be for our Icelander and our Dash matchups. Against Dash, this can get rid of a key item, and against Icelander, this can get rid of a Frost Hex and something they might control. Maybe they have a Channel Lake Frigid in play. Inertia Trap is here for our Guardian and Ranger matchups, mainly our Azalea matchup, since getting rid of their arsenal and their hand is generally very big and can swing the tempo. And against Guardian, we can play this on like in a Nothos swing and make them lose their arsenal, so pretty nice there. Finally, the red shreds are here for any matchup playing like things like Sink Below and Favor Scene, since one of those beats one of our 3 pumps and one of our 1 pumps, so being able to just deny that red 4 block with a red attack reaction ourselves isn't too bad. That's going to be it for the video. I do hope that you enjoyed. I'm not sure what video we'll be doing next week, but I'm sure I'll come up with something pretty nice. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.